Okay, here's a common problem. Where's Lucy at?
I'm here.
See where you at? Oh, see how these colors, they look very out of the tube.
Yeah, I think I was scanning it. It kind of came out weird.
Well, this one is out of the tube. This color, because I know these colors, okay? This is out of the tube. This, to me, that's out of the tube. This doesn't feel as much like that. But do you see how I can see these are out of the tube? Does that make sense?
What do you mean by out of the tube? Like,
when you just take a color straight out of the tube and you throw it down.
oh, okay.
Okay, and it's kind of, a lot of people do this because they just, we're kind of starting to approach something. If you haven't done this with real paint, it's a totally different thing than the computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Once you go through this, you start understanding it, it will totally inform your digital work a lot, okay? So what you got to do is you got to kind of go, like let's say the alligator's green, and the alligator could be bright and stuff like that. But usually I'd say Ken Oster, was a monster plein air painter and all that, he used to say that life is nothing but a bunch of colored grays. Okay. And I kind of agree with that. When you go out and paint, or you're painting a painting or an illustration or anything, or you go out and plein air paint, you are rarely using anything out of the tube. It's way too saturated. Okay. The only time I might do that is sort of at the end of something. I might kind of knock a few hits of maybe yellow or red to hit a couple of wildflowers or something, but it's, I've set up that whole painting so those things pop, right? Or there might be a few places, if I went out and painted the spring when all the wildflowers come out, I might have a few pops of that, but not very much. Even the stuff that looks very bright, when you have a field of flowers and they all sort of meld together and you paint that, they'll look really saturated, but if you just go grab that yellow and throw it down, it will not look right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So what you got to do is, and this is what I'm trying to get to with this, because this is the quickest way to start thinking about this. If I want to do a green, I'm probably going to mix, more than likely I'm going to mix my own green, because I might go, I want it to be a little more natural green. So maybe I'll go to a yellow ochre, which is an earth tone, and maybe a cobalt, because that's a pretty strong blue, and I'll get myself a green, right? And then I'll kind of look at that, and that's probably even, that might not be too saturated just because I started it with an earth tone. But if it is, I'm going to go and grab probably a little bit of red and knock it in there and kill it a little bit, because red's its complement, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So red can be used to darken it, or your complement can be used to darken it, or can be used to neutralize it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And those are kind of the two basic starting points when you're starting to mix color, okay? Okay, when I took all that color theory stuff when I was in college, nobody told me how to think about it in the real world, and that's kind of what I'm telling you, okay? Because 90% of what I mix is probably complements, or some variation of that, okay? I might knock another color in there to nudge it one way or another. I might put something in there to cool it off or something. But the rule of thumb is, if you start getting over 3 colors, and you can here and there, but if you start getting over 3 colors, you're going to start getting mud. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now you can do 3 colors, that's fine. But if you start introducing too many colors, you're going to start neutralizing all these things, and you're just going to start neutralizing the whole mix. Okay. But your starting point is to go, what kind of green do I want here? Right?
Yes.
So like is it a brighter green? That's fine. And sometimes you can take the green out of the tube because it's got the flavor you like, but then you're probably going to have to neutralize it a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also, if I'm going to warm up that green a little bit, I might go to, this is another thing you got to think about. Whenever I'm going to lighten up a color or something, I think about, is there a color I can use in there without using white? Okay. And by the way, no black in this, no black on your palette, no burnt umber, no Payne's gray, just color. Does that make sense?
Yes. This is very helpful.
It's what?
Because this is like my first time actually doing watercolor, so it was kind of confusing.
I know. There's a lot of you guys it's first time. That's why I'm giving you a lot of time to play with this. The first project, I give you a lot of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm going over it bit by bit with you. Okay. And what I'm going to start doing on Monday is I'll have a watercolor set up over here and I'll start reacting to what I'm seeing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you have to walk down this path, in my opinion. If you're doing everything digital, that doesn't mean anything to me. Okay. And you know, and I see it all the time. Once they get into an illustration class, take away all the little entertainment design tools and people start falling apart because this is now pure narrative. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I learned this stuff on the job. You know, you go on the job, you think you're pretty good at something, then somebody throws you a curveball, something you're not used to doing, and you might kind of fall apart if your skill set's not there. Okay. So I think the one that's more successful is probably this more muted one here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the last one I did.
You know, and what you're going to do is, and then you go, okay, I've got my overall wash in here. And then then you can come in and again, maybe neutralize it a little bit more. Now here's the trick. Like if you're doing a green, let's say, right? And green is a real tricky color. They always say it's the hardest color to mix. Then I'm going to mix a shadow value of that green and, darken a little bit. Again, I can just pop some red in there or whatever and darken it down and start to knock in my shadow values, right?
Yes.
And then we'll just start building it. Okay. And something I might ask you guys to do, I might put it up on a, shit, how can I do this? My printer's down here. I got to go get a new printer. And I can do it. I can just make it up on the spot on Monday. It's fine. Because next week I want to be fully into painting. Does that make sense? Yeah? And heading towards finish, or heading towards, getting this done. Okay. Yeah. Does that make sense, all that?
Yeah, I'll play around with it.
Play around just going and just exactly what you just said. Like take this one because you're not going to use this one and go in and mix a shadow value in here using your complements, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing you can do when you're doing watercolor, and you guys have to understand this, watercolor is stained glass, okay? It's by default a glazing medium, okay? So sometimes I'll mix the color on the palette, and sometimes I'll go, I'm going to put down a real acidic yellow, like a lemon yellow, and then I'll let that dry, let's say, or I might even do it wet and wet, but let's say I'm going to let it dry. And let's say it's a lawn and some lights hitting that lawn. Then I might come in with a darker value green and just cut around the lights, right? And just go right over it. And why? Or I might go, that color needs to go a little bluer. And then I could just go right over it with a little wash of blue. And you're always seeing every layer through every layer. So it's you can affect the color that way too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because
everybody always says, I don't like this. They always make watercolor out to be so terrifying. Oh my God, if you screw it up and keep a rag in this hand. And when you throw down a color, lift it out if it doesn't work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a rag right here.
Yeah, I always keep one in my left hand. If I throw a color that I don't like it, I just lift it out. And it's probably not going to lift out totally. It doesn't matter. It's going to disappear under the other washes. I'm always suspect when people go, oh, there's all these ways you can lift the color back out and change it. You can just scrub it with a bristle brush. And it's like, I don't think you've really painted in watercolor before. That's always what goes into my head. There are ways you can do that. But like, if you're not number one, it's pretty hard to do. And number two, you're probably going to tear the surface of the board or the paper a little bit. And once you break the surface of that watercolor paper, it will not accept watercolor the way it's supposed to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It just, all of a sudden you'll have this area that looks really weird. Okay. So when people go like, go in there and scrub it out with a blah, 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 you're going to screw up the paper. That paper is sized. And that means that it's designed to control the absorption of the paper or of the color on the surface of the paper. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if it didn't have sizing on it, what it would do is just suck all that color right in the paper and it'd actually be kind of ugly. That's why it lays down really nice on that surface. Candace, what are you doing? I can't hear you.
I'm trying to refine my sketch.
Okay, make sure you're paying attention though, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
listening.
Okay, Lucy, you have any other questions?
No, that's it. This is really helpful.
Good. Don't worry about it. I'm going to walk you through this stuff. I'm never going to throw you to the wolves in this stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have to learn it. I mean, it's just something you have to learn. That's all. It's just part of your learning curve. I like to start with watercolor because it's a very direct medium. Water, paint, that's it, right?
Mhm.
Did you go and do that on the paper?
No,
Is that
that's
digital?
this is digital.
The comp is. It almost looks like a smudge thing. Okay.
Autodesk doesn't have a good big brush that's like clean edged.
So screw Autodesk, get rid of it. Get on.
I don't know, my computer is kind of weird. It gets heat up really fast, so I'm gonna have to like clean the fans and stuff.
Here's my answer to that. If my computer wasn't doing what I wanted to do, I jump over to paper. Right?
Yeah.
Fluidity with medium, okay? Or with media. Make sure that you're fluid. I'd rather work on paper anyway, but and not for everything. But if it's not doing what I want to do, I jump over to paper, you know? And you know, and like with color and stuff, obviously, if I'm, again, the only thing I might do digitally with color is I might just go, I think I want to use a palette like this, and I'll just real half-ass slap that palette on my drawing or whatever, and just see if it even works. And if it does, then I'm going to jump over to paper and actually do my color comp. Does that make sense? I might just do proof of concept digitally. Does that make sense?
I had a problem with my color comp because I didn't know how to create like the warm fuzzy feeling with like I didn't know what colors to pick and stuff because I don't know how to make the entire thing like warm and happy.
What did you look at for reference?
I had some like children's room like pictures,
Okay.
but those are I don't know. A lot of them are like fluorescently lit that looks really good in a picture, but then
what you really have to do, I mean, when I'm thinking of this kind of stuff, I'm gonna look at some old, some kindergarten rooms and things like that. I'm gonna find some that are really fun. I'm gonna find some ones that express the vibe of what I'm after, right? But the main thing you got to do is like you've got to basically reduce, right? Now, there's also things. Have you had color theory? Okay, there's a problem, right? There's also things you can do in color theory where you go, hey, I really want to have a dominant. Oh, let's say the alligator's green, right? So let's look at this. Because I actually, at this phase, I believe it. I think you have to know all your stuff, but I also think there's tools that I don't think there's anything. I'm not a Luddite. I don't believe in not using modern tools. What I don't believe in is using modern tools to avoid knowledge. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of relationships, color relationships you can do. Like, and you know what? Somebody in here asked me to put something up for about that, and I forgot all about it. I'll put that up. But there are some tools in here, and I'm just going to use this because it has a tool in here I think we could use. So let's take this. And let's just use this green as a starting point. So let's say let's say probably a little more here. So I'm going to, I don't know why all of a sudden I've forgotten the hotkey for the eyedropper tool in Illustrator, which is super weird. Hang on.
Is it different from the other ones?
I don't remember it being different from the other ones, but for some reason all day today, my Illustrator's been doing really weird stuff. And I don't know why.
Because I think the hotkey for the other ones is Alt.
No, yeah, it's Option.
Okay. Oh, you're on a Mac. Duh.
Well, it's the same thing. Hang on. Where is my toolbar? Okay, that's totally weird. God, I don't know what has been going on with my Illustrator all day.
I don't know, Phil had so much problem with his Photoshop this morning, and you're like having problem with Illustrator, like everything's stuck. Nothing works.
Here, but
Nothing
there it
ever
is.
works.
Okay, so I'm just going to sample this one of these greens. And that's really yellowy. So let's go and, and I don't want it that hot. So let's just say, I don't like that green, but let's just say that's a little better. Let's just say we're starting with this. Okay, so in Illustrator, and you also, by the way, I'll show you a couple things. Because I know everybody can't go out and learn color theory in the length of this class, but what I'm hoping this will open the door to is you go in, I need to take color theory, okay? So I can come in here and go, there's a tool in here called, God, well, everything is screwed up in here. So what we're looking at here, and let's put this, let's go. So now we have, let's say we like this green, right?
Mhm.
So if you look here now, it's got on this side, it says shades and tints, which is exactly what it is. They're tints and shades of this color. And then what it's giving me, if you look at this little flyout window, it's giving me a tetradic color scheme, okay? So let's make it simple. Let's go to Analogous. So now it gives me an Analogous palette, okay? Which is basically all different, all things that are close together, close to each other in the color wheel, okay? And then let's go, this is a triadic relationship, okay? So now I could take this and go, and it's starting to give me colors that make sense in a color theory sense. Does that make sense? And then what I can do is I can start looking at these and going, I kind of like that one. Now you're always going to end up adjusting it. I've never had this just fall right exactly where I want, but all these things are, all this language over here is all color theory language, basically complementary, split complementary. Let's do a split complementary. Very similar, actually. But I like that purple in there. That's just a nice color in there. And then I'm looking, can I find another one I like in here? Maybe that one. And then I go, okay, maybe I need a pop in there of something else. So let's go here and go, like maybe here. Like this is starting to get a little more. And this one is Analogous 2. That's Analogous. Let's try. We already did a triad. They have all these different triads. Compound. This one's got some hotter yellows in it, which is kind of what I was looking for. Then I still got this nice purple in here, and I'm starting to like that better. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then maybe I got an accent over here of this, or maybe I'd knock that down, but maybe, or so here's the knockdown a little bit right there. It's a little too dead. So I'd probably adjust that color. I don't want it that red, but I don't mind this. Let's say I don't mind this color relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, another thing I can do is I can go, let's say, let's look up Fun Kids Classroom. Because, by the way, this is the reality of it. You have to know this stuff. But the reality of this is if I'm doing something, I'll probably jump around and try different things. I might just have an idea in my head and I just go with that. Or I might be kind of stuck and I'm going to go in here and it might kick something loose. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So this actually, by the way, is a little bit similar to the one we just did. They had that sort of pale, wherever it went. I must have got rid of this one. This is a little duller version of it, and they're using a blue. And I would probably try and avoid just a primary palette. But if I see a kid's room in here like this, let's take this just for sake of argument. So this tool set that's in here is also in a different way. There's a wheel version of it and stuff in Photoshop, but also what you can do is you can go you can just go to a search engine, type in Adobe color wheel. And you're going to get this. Okay, so here we go. Monochromatic, triadic, complementary, split complementary, double, square, compound, shades, custom. Those are all color theory terms. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So right here is this little 1, 2, 3, 5 note palette. I can come up here and I can start adjusting things, and it will automatically adjust this palette for me based on parameters that I'm putting down here. If I want to put a little more blue into that purple, it adjusts the other colors for me based on, this is an analogous scheme. So if I go to split complementary, it's going to go here, which actually isn't a bad one either, right? Now I'm not going to go to such saturated versions, but it gives me a coherent palette. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm looking for reference in this stuff, like this kid's room, let's say that I go, I really like this kid's room. It's fun, it's bright, blah, blah, blah. Although I wouldn't go so primary-ish. I can go, and I don't know why they language this way, but it says right here, extract theme. I can click that, and I can grab, oops, let's get rid of this. And I can grab this image, put it here, and it generates a palette off of that image. Okay, so if I'm finding some nice reference, and then over here, look, this is the color version. Here's the bright version. Here's the muted version. Here's a deep version. Here's a dark version. And I don't know what none is. So it's an idea starter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm also not going to go, oh, I got to use this green and I got to use this orange. I'm just going to go, okay, I got a green alligator. I want to use a different green. Maybe that kid's shirt over there is maybe like a little muted orange with these kind of orange red stripes or something. You know what I mean? And then you're just rolling. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not knowing color theory, this is a way. Oh, that's interesting. I never saw that. Oh, wow. Look at that. It'll give you a gradient too. I didn't even know that. And then the other thing that's nice about this is you can go wherever it is. Let's go back here. It's right here where it says save. If you're signed into Adobe, Adobe, you can save these palettes and then, keep them in wherever, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. And now you got a palette starter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, this is something that I might just take my drawing real fast and sort of just work out the basic color scheme digitally just to see if it works. Just to go, okay, I'm going to make that kid's shirt orange. I'm going to make that kid's yellow. I want to make the walls blue. I'm going to make this. And then I kind of screw around with it and go, that kind of works. Then I'll go to my watercolor and make the comp. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just do this digitally, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what any of those colors are. And then by the way, when you're working with color, if you're working with alizarin crimson, that's a very deep, cool red, right? If you're working in oil and it's Grumbacher red, that's a very neutral red. Okay. And it goes on and on. They lean, warm, or cool, right? And I gave you guys my palette, right? Didn't I list my color palette?
Don't
think I
think
did.
I knew.
It was a long time ago. I'll double check. And if I didn't, I'll put it up again. I use a split primary palette. I know we've had this conversation. Split primary palette. I include green as a primary. Green isn't a primary. I understand that, but I just kind of visualize it as a primary. So I have a warm, cool green, a warm, cool red, a warm, cool blue, a warm, cool yellow, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and that's it. Okay, so it's a pretty small palette. That's probably 9 colors. It's not very much. You don't want too many colors, otherwise your colors will never harmonize. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so for you, I don't want to get any further in the weeds until I see what you got on Monday. Make sense?
All right.
But does all that make sense?
I kind of get it. I think if I don't get it, I'll just rewatch it.
Okay, but is there anything off the top of your head that you're not understanding? Because I know it's a lot of information.
I have like a really basic understanding of color theory from like, you know, Ryman and stuff.
But
so
then what entertainment classes have you taken?
I've only taken like the draftsmanship like oriented ones. So like, you know, perspective that I'm
Right,
taking
that's
right
great.
now.
That's great.
And prop design last semester.
Okay, so you jump into prop design. Have you had basic drawing for entertainment arts, let's say?
No.
Then how do you jump to prop design?
Oh,
Stair step.
got to.
Does that make sense? And we all need to do that. Okay, you need to, like at Art Center, it's something I really learned there. The first year, the first 4 terms you're there, actually it's not a year, it's more, 2 years, let's say. You do nothing but foundational. Okay, and you're in a place where you're seeing all this work that you're just drooling over. You're chomping at the bit to do that stuff. You know what I mean? And the school is going, you're not doing that shit. Like, you don't know how to do that shit yet, dude. You got to do this. You got to get this stuff down. You got to get your drawing down. You got to get your design down, and then you can get your color down and all that stuff. Then you can go do all that fun stuff. But you're not doing it for at least a year and a half. You know what I mean? And it's that's one of the reasons they crank out so many good people, because it's foundational, fundamental thinking. Okay, and then you go off the cliff after that, right? When I had Petrushka, my first gouache class, everybody was chomping at the bit for Petrushka's gouache class. I know I told you guys this. First day, he put a big roll of paper up all around all the walls in the room, you know, 4 or 5, whatever it was, probably 4 feet wide. He goes, everybody go up there and draw a cube in perspective. And everybody got insulted. And he goes, we're not doing shit until you get up and do that. Everybody got up. You know how many cubes were wrong? Like a ton of them, man. And it was his point. It's like, you guys are all coming in here, all thinking you're hot shit, and you better have your fundamentals down. You know what I mean? And it really had an impact on me. All that stuff had a huge impact on me. Okay. And it's what and I want you guys to create your path, and you need to talk to us about that. You know, we're trying to put together a document and everything. It makes that a lot easier. But I would always think of it as like basic, get your drawing skills together, your design skills and your color skills together, sort of together. Okay. Because I always say, if you can draw, paint, and design, you can pretty much do anything. Okay. Because if you have a good understanding of drawing and form, then you can probably go into Frank's class and understand form, because you understand drawing somewhat, you know, and now you're working in three-dimensional environment and all that. You know, so on and so forth, right? Then you come into a class like this and you go, okay, I understand color, you know, and you know, and you're applying those fundamental things to this kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go
It
ahead.
reminds me of Rachel Morales. She
Mhm.
went to our center,
Yeah.
and I saw on her Instagram, like she posted of her homework and how they would have them do like 100 drawings of
Yes.
hands or of faces.
Expressions.
And like, she's already so good, at least to me. So
He is.
like, yeah, they still have to go through that process.
Yeah, because okay, so Rachel's a great example. She was a great student at Fullerton, but it was really fun to watch her go through Art Center, because I don't. It seemed like it happened very fast, but I'm sure to her it doesn't. But I started seeing her on Instagram and going, "Holy shit!" You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
holy smokes! I mean, I look at her work and I just go, forget her ever being a student or anything. I'm just a fan of her work.
Yeah.
I just think her work is fantastic. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't care if I didn't know who she was. I'd be following her and loving looking at her stuff, because it's great. It has
Mhm.
nothing to do with her going to Fullerton or anything. I think it's really cool she went to Fullerton,
Yeah.
but it's just fun to see somebody go, wow, man, you just got shot out of a cannon. you know, when she went over there, and, you know, and a lot of that though, it's not just art center or whatever, it's her work ethic. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
She has a monster work ethic, man. And she's a nice person. By the way, look.
That sounds like an afterthought.
No, she is. She's a really nice kid. Look, you can get a lot of kids who are very talented, or they go to somewhere and they get really good. Then they become a little snotty and arrogant. And she's just never been like that. And I don't blame him. It's youth. You know, if I was as good as her at her age, I probably would have been all full of myself, actually. Look at, see these little dots right here?
Mhm.
I can move those and readjust the color scheme. Okay. And it'll start readjusting this stuff for me and giving me a, you know, so I don't just have to go with whatever it picks right off the bat. Like there's a brown in here that I kind of like that. I like that color. I kind of like this palette a little bit. I'd probably change this one. So this one I'd change. You know, and if I find something in there I kind of like, I might give it a shot. Yeah?
Mhm.
Does that all make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so if you have problems with it, because we're not going to talk until Monday, send me an email.
Okay.
Okay? No more questions?
I do have one more.
What?
I got some watercolor pencils. I don't plan on using them like for main things. I just thought I'd use it on like real like scales or some details and stuff.
Sure.
Is that a yes?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also color pencils tend to be more, or watercolor pencils tend to be, what brand did you get? Do you know? Derwent?
Oh yeah.
Is it Derwent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know my shit. And they're called ink tints, right?
Not those.
Which ones
The-
are they?
Just I think those are cheaper. The ones I'm holding.
Okay, but what, okay. Ink tints are really intense color, but watercolor pencils can have pretty intense color and be pretty dense when you put them down. So just play with them a little bit. If you want, I'll do a demo next week with them, just show you some cool sketching stuff you can do with them. Okay. What's really cool about them, I just like playing with this stuff. You can take like maybe 3 of those, maybe 4. I did this on the plane when I would go on work trips. I take like 4 of those and a water brush, and I just pick like a russety color, yellow ochre, and I think maybe like a muted blue or something. I think that's what I had. And I just put it in one of these little pencil case things. I have one here somewhere. You know, those little plastic pencil case, those cheap ones.
Yeah.
And I could do portraits really fast with that. You know what I mean? So I could just throw down a real quick sketch, throw down the flesh tones, kind of blah, blah, blah. And you could just do really fast portraits with it. Yeah?
Yeah.
You know, without carrying around a lot of stuff. But I usually always carry a little watercolor kit about that big anyway, which isn't that much harder, really. Okay, so we know what we're doing, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
I do more color comps and send them to you.
Yes. Where's Julia?
Right here.
Okay, we got a little more, but now if you're pushing something, if you're pushing against something, you're gonna go like this? Or are you gonna put your back into it and do this? Right.
It is.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
And then you're gonna be leaning forward,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And then these wheels have to have some dimension. Right now they feel like they're discs. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
Mhm.
It's something that I see all the time, and I consider that a transition thing.
Mhm.
Things don't exist in nature. Like a wheel isn't just a flat plane. It's got depth. It has a little bit of roundness to it, and then it bulges out. You know, if it's a car tire, it'll bulge out a little bit. You know, it's a fairly complex form, right? Yeah, it doesn't have to be on this. I'm not saying that. And then I feel like we're getting a little primary color
I see.
and pretty saturated. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, you know, maybe this kid's got a pattern on his shirt, right?
Alrighty.
And then like this, it's just one. See, this is what I'm trying to avoid. These pants are one flat wash. This shirt is one flat wash. This whole alligator is one flat wash. The hat is one flat wash. This
see.
has a little bit of lighting to it, but not much. The house has no detail on it and everything's a flat wash. Does that make
I see.
sense?
Mhm.
We got to start creating a little more shape and it's modulation, right? So the
Yes.
color and the values kind of move a little bit, get a little darker here, a little more warm there, just little things like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that'll, you know, and the kid's arm is up like that. Look, I'm going to get a pull fold right there. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then, you know, depending where, you know, I can get it. Look how this folds across and then this word cuts off and this rolls over it. Like a lot of times I'll put a fold right across here to do just that. And then I'll put a logo or something on the kid's shirt so it breaks over the fold. So it starts to look a little more interesting. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes.
And then I'm not going to see under his heel like that.
Gotcha.
And then this flowers probably, when you're doing flowers, try, or at least I think, try to, you know, move them. Well, let's say like this view here. This is sort of, and it could do that. It could bend away from me. That's fine, but it feels a little weird.
Mhm.
Try to think of its fundamental construction, which is actually something like, oops, something like that, almost like a cone. Does that make sense? And then it's doing this.
Oh, I see.
And then maybe the other side, I might just do as a little darker value and not even put any detail in it. Why? So it'll pop the lighter side out towards the viewer.
I see. Mhm.
It's just real simple. And then I can put a little, you know, and then maybe I turn one this way and maybe the interior's right there. So now I'm getting them at a little bit different angles. A little bit of business on there, maybe a little of that. You know, and then same thing. Then I might just put some that I just sort of fill space a little bit, or maybe these are just in shadow, you know, and I start to build a little scene with my flowers. Does that make
I
sense?
see. Mhm.
I'm always trying to mass things because I'm lazy and I don't want to do that much work, right?
Mhm.
And then, yeah, you can have a few facing forward. But now we've got a variety of angles, correct?
Yes.
You know, this can kind of just break a little bit. Like, and then look, you're repeating this shape. You see that?
Mhm.
Did you take basic design?
Yes.
Okay, well, there's times they probably talked about that, about repeating shapes that are the same size, same shape, right?
Mhm.
It'll create a static image. Now, you might want to use that if it's telephone poles going down into the distance because they repeat, but now they're overlapping and they're getting smaller and they're telling the viewer there's depth. That's different, right? Because
Mhm.
I do this all the time. I think everybody does. I hate this. I'll go out and do a painting from life or something, landscape. I'll bring it home and yeah, it looks okay. And I'll look at it next day and I go, holy shit, there's like this shape, this shape, this shape. And I've got like 4 shapes repeating. It ruins the painting. It just ruined it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll notice it on, that's why it's good to have a little mirror, you know, so you can look at stuff and flip it. And then you'll see those problems when you're on location. Usually I can see them now, or I'll flip it upside down or something, look at it. And then I'll correct it on site. You know, I'll just paint one of them out, make one of them shorter or whatever. Okay.
Sounds
We'll
good.
kind of get a coherent color scheme here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could do it basically like we just talked about with Leah's, right?
Yes.
If you want to do that. I don't mind using, you know, those kind of tools to figure this stuff out. I just don't want you not understanding the underlying knowledge.
I see.
Does that make sense? Because I sure as hell on a job would never sit there and go, I'm not using those tools because I'm a traditionalist. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go, shit, man, I got to get this thing done by tomorrow morning. I got to get ideas here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
So try to make the wheels more like looking like
Wheels are
wheels.
like this. They're 2 ellipses and then they connect.
I see.
And here's the interior part. And I know I'm drawing crappy ellipses today. You know, and they probably have a little bit of roundness to them. You don't have to get crazy with it. What I usually do is cover it like that and do something like that.
Mhm.
You know, on a kid's whatever you call it, wheelbarrow, they don't usually have tread. If they do, it's probably just like that cut tread like that. And that's it. You just got to remember that a wheel is this, and then you connect it. And then this, and then this. Does that make sense?
Got it.
If I turn it this way, I'm doing it in that position because that's where whenever you're drawing ellipses, make sure you turn your board so it's an easy. If you're trying to do ellipses like this, they probably won't work. Or like some weird angle like that, I turn my board, or usually I turn and if it's on digital like this, I turn the whole thing,
I
right?
see. Mhm.
And then, you know, and then I can start to go, well, this is going to bow a little bit. If it was a car tire, okay. And then actually a car tire would have some sort of, you know, rim in there. And then I can start going, okay, what kind of tread does it have on it? And I can start wrapping the tread around it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, and then we start to get a tire a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Whenever you're having trouble drawing something, try and break it down to its basic form.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now the trick is you got to learn how to make sure it doesn't feel like everything's built out of a box or something, right?
Mhm.
But once you got that basic form under there, then you can sort of just jump in and sort of loosen it up a little bit, but it's more accurate then. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Um,
You don't have to have one. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
no, it's okay. I'm just going over what you were telling me. So, add more value to the rest of the things like the house,
It's not value. You want to get a coherent color scheme.
coherent color scheme. Got it.
Because right now it feels a little out of the tubey and just sort of like, okay, this is green, this is blue, this is purple, this is green. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Whereas like you want to have some, you know, do some research. Like, I hope I've emphasized this enough. You have to do research on everything. Okay. And I don't just mean in the sense like, what does this look like or that kind of thing. I was just watching something on CF Payne, who's a master illustrator. Okay.
Mhm.
Total big time illustrator dude, right? Still works traditionally, beautiful work, very much in the tradition of Rockwell. And he's talking about his process and he's talking about reference. You know, I'm pulling this, I'm looking for this, I'm doing this. And then he's, you know, it's, you know, this is what you do with this stuff. If you're using reference, he's doing very stylized, but very finished work. Okay. So that kind of work, you really need reference. Okay. I draw a lot of things, paint a lot of things out of my head, but there's certain types of work where I'm going to go look at reference. Right.
Mhm.
And then maybe you're taking this head from this image, and then you're taking this jacket and pose from another image, and you're just starting to put all these things together. Right. It also helps you as an illustrator because it can get, and that's what he was talking about in it. It can get you away from copyright infringement, which was what happened to Shepard Fairey with that Obama Hope poster, is he got sued because that was an AP press photo that he just took. And he didn't really, I mean, yeah, he changed the color, but I mean, he absolutely used it pretty much verbatim. And he got sued and he lost, right?
Mhm.
And he should have lost because that's an asshole move. He should have went to that photographer and licensed that photo if that's what he wanted to use, right?
Yes.
Okay. You know, and then the same thing. And how big is this? Letter size?
Yeah, pretty much.
Way too big.
Too big? Okay.
Should be that big.
Sounds good.
You know, you're not making a finished piece. What you're trying to do here is do something small and quick, just like you do your thumbnails, right?
Yes.
And then boom, do another one, boom, do another one, boom, do another one. You're working your stuff out.
Sounds
Right?
good.
That's what you're trying to do with this, is I'm trying to get you. That's why I spend so much time on this. So I've had students that are like, thumbnails. And I'm like, yeah, you really have to know how to thumbnail. You really have to know how to ideate, and you really have to know how to iterate. And most students don't. Okay. They do one or two things. They're totally half-ass ideas. They have not been thought through or worked out. I just watched the document. By the way, you guys ought to watch this type designer on Abstract. Okay. Jonathan Hoffler, right? And he's been working on this. This guy's a monster designer. Okay. He just does type. He's been working on this typeface for like 10 years.
Wow.
I think it's actually longer. He's been working on it forever. 23 years. I can't remember. It's an insane number, but it's a very complex design problem. Okay. And I don't know if you guys know this. Designing type to that level is really hard to do. Okay. Like if somebody called me up and said, hey, can you design a typeface for us? I'd be like, no way. Okay. I do not have that skill set. That's a different skill set than I have. Okay. But what I want you to watch on that, it's called Abstract, is on Netflix, and his name's Jonathan. Actually, all of them are good. You guys should watch all of them. I want you to see how fine-tuned that guy's eyes are. Okay, because he does a lot of things. I've always talked to my students about this because I had to take a type class when I was at Art Center, and we had to do our type by hand with Plaka paint, which is a casein paint on illustration board, right? It was insanely hard. And I had somebody who was kind of like that guy who was a type freak. And it was really interesting to see how fine-tuned her eyes were to stuff that I couldn't even see yet. And then I realized it was a microcosm for design, period, right? Balance, form, how the negative space, when you design typeface, you're not just designing the typeface, you're designing all the negative space between the typeface. It's all got to work together. There's 26 letter forms, and then there's uppercase, lowercase, plus all the punctuation, plus anything else you put in there. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's a crazy design problem. And then he does a thing in there, which I want you guys to see, where he's going, you know, these two things are the same basically, or this, let's say it's an S. This S looks very balanced, looks very even, right? But it's actually a little fatter in the middle because it's an optical thing that if you don't do that, it'll look wrong. Or like putting two letters next to each other from the same alphabet or from the same letter family, and you go, yeah, they're the exact same size. Well, they're not. Once you float them over, this one's this much taller. Because optically, it won't work next to each other. It'll look totally off. And there's all these names for these things. There's like these scientific optic names. And the reason I think that's so important is go look at that, because I'm obsessed right now with balance. That's what I'm obsessed with right now. I don't know why, but because I'm finding out that everything's about balance. Design's about balance, drawing's about balance, painting's about balance, everything's about balance. If it doesn't balance, it sucks. Does that make sense? If the whole thing isn't balanced, if I can't turn it upside down, walk 40 feet away from it, it still looks right, or look at it in the mirror and walk 10 feet away from it and it looks right, so on and so forth. Look at it 10 feet away, look at it 40 feet away, and it's all balanced and it looks good, it sucks. Does that make sense? It's balance. Okay, any other questions?
No, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
I have a draftsmanship question that's kind of related to what we talked about there.
Okay.
So I've been looking at Peter DeSev's work, like we talked about on Monday, and
Super balanced.
yeah, I was wondering if you could kind of demonstrate how to get those like I don't think they're value shifts. I think he like it's hard to explain, but like the
I know
way
exactly
that
how he works.
he shifts color like within an object, like
Yes.
there'll be like a bunch of different colors that kind of mesh together.
Right. That's what I was talking to you about piling color on, remember?
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
And I'm
Do you
glad you
think you
saw
can-
it. I'm glad that
yeah.
you noticed it.
Do you think you can like kind of demonstrate sort of like how to go about that at some point?
I can on Monday. You want me to go over
Okay.
that?
Yeah, like if you could do like a little like 5 or 10 minute demo over the weekend or something, so I can
Yeah, I
watch
can
it.
kind of speak to it, and it's sort of a I got another fight on my hands here. It's something that I finally, well, I discovered it like in college probably, where it's really where I start looking for the color. Like there's two things. You can modulate the, and I'll show you, you can modulate the color or you can modulate the value a little bit. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and like I had a teacher one time, this is also, I started learning this lesson actually at Fullerton. I had a teacher, it was a watercolor class, and he goes, we're going to go out on campus and paint. Yeah, cool. I go out on campus. And I remember we were drawing I think it's a computer science building or whatever that building is. and we were standing in front of it, and it has sort of a very light ochre color to it and some trees in front of it. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't think I do.
Right
but-
across on the campus, if you walk out and you're standing in front of the library,
Okay.
looking towards the quad, it's the building on the left.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That
now.
one. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the building color, and I'm going, and I'm trying to mix that color, right? And I'm going, okay, I think that's it. Then I put this big wash down of that color, and I'm all stupidly proud of myself, and I'm sure it looked like crap. And then you know, I'm kind of approaching it like that. And then when we came in, his looked obviously 100 times better than mine, 1,000 times better than mine. But what blew my mind is that same wall that I saw ochre on, like a light ochre, he saw purple, blue, all kinds of colors in there, and his looked more like that wall than mine did. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's the same exact issue that
It's
I'm
the same
having.
exact issue. And I looked at that, and again, I looked at that and I go, I don't get that at all. Like, where in the hell are you getting? And the answer is, to a certain extent, there's two things. And I learned this from two different places. One was a guy that I went to school with. He's a painter named Todd Connor. He's a Western genre painter. And he had a great sense of color. And it was the same trip. We were painting a model. They had a piece of gray seamless behind the model. You guys know what seamless is, right?
Yeah.
It's just a seamless sheet of paper they put behind the model, or you put it behind a photography thing. It's just, you know, it could be white, it could be whatever. And it was gray. It was like a mid-value gray. And the same thing. I'm in there trying to nail this thing. It was dead. It was dead. It was just flat and dead. Then I walk over to Todd's easel. And again, he's got purples in there. He's got all these color shifts in there. And me and him in between class used to just sit outside, and I don't probably got something to eat and just sat there and talked, right? And I go, where's that coming from? Where's that coming from? And he just goes, you got to really look and you'll see that. So when I went back in, I did that. And that was my first step into it, where I started looking, and I go, and it's cool because he sort of paved the way for me, because I looked at the way he handled it on his painting. And I'm like, he's seeing purple in there. And then I looked at it deep enough, and I started going, okay, I can see that a little bit. But then the answer mechanically is that you look around and you go, what's in this environment that I can bounce? What, like an alligator, you know, does their flesh tone sort of go to, you know, and this is why you got to catalog this stuff and go sketch and stuff like that. You know, maybe you look at an alligator, and I catalog this stuff and I go, okay, that alligator's sort of a grayish, little bit of blue, but then, or maybe it's warm gray, let's say. And then when, you know, and they're very kind of slick surface, sometimes they're a little bit wet, is that alligator's back, you know, they're laying in the sun or whatever, and it's a blue sky. I'm going to cool that down, and maybe I'm going to really push that blue reflection that's influencing his back. And then I'm going to go underneath here. I can warm up his belly a little bit because the light's coming down and bouncing off the ground. So now I just created 3 colors where there would have been 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's helping a lot, actually.
That's
Thank
the
you.
main way you do it, is understand light. And I always hear people talking about lighting, and they're always, and this drives me crazy, it's always in that entertainment design sense. Well, you got to understand lighting. And then it's all this sort of bullshit movie lighting, which is totally fine. But then again, when I take those kind of students and I'm trying to get them to what I'm trying to get you guys to, they have no clue how to do that because they don't actually understand lighting. They understand this bullshit entertainment design version of lighting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is like warm and cool, you know, warm and cool, warm and cool. I'm going to put a fire over here. And then there's
Where everything's backlit.
it's like, it's total, it's nothing wrong with that, except that what happens is when you're putting the cart before the horse and you're going, okay, man, you're creating environments that are very rudimentary in a weird way. And you're creating environments that aren't natural. So then, like, when you come into a class like this, and I like getting entertainment students in here, because then you start going, oh, and I take all those tricks away from you. It ain't so easy, is it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I ask you to do this in watercolor, which is why I'm asking you to do, I'm asking you to do it in watercolor for a couple of reasons. I want you to at least get your hands wet in some sort of traditional media so we can talk about what we're talking about right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I can talk about digitally, but it's totally different. Okay. So, you know, so that you kind of understand, like, least get your hands wet with some real mechanics, okay? Because this isn't really about watercolor. It's about fundamentals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm a foundational teacher. I love fundamentals. I love it. When they interviewed for me for this job, John Tabay, the dean, goes, why are you going to want to do this job with this skill set you have in your career? And I go, because I'm all about fundamentals. This, to me, is what it's all about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I love this more than anything. Fundamentals, you know, advanced classes are super fun to teach or whatever, but I love teaching fundamentals because that's where you're going to learn, where I can teach you something that you can take it into, let's say, advanced painting or digital painting or whatever. And you're going to have that extra layer of knowledge on there that you're going to be able to, you know, swamp everybody with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from, by the way. Most of the people in the industry who are totally monsters come from a traditional background. Most of them. Craig Mullins definitely comes from a traditional background, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I look at his digital stuff and I don't even know it's digital.
Yeah. So same thing with Greg Rakowski. You know, he's got paintings that even though I totally know they're traditional, I have to really look at him and go, looks like an oil painting. Jason Seiler, same thing, right? You know why? Because Jason Seiler just paints like a painter because he came from traditional painting and he just paints digital paintings like they're oil paintings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, does that kind of answer that a little bit?
Yeah, it does. That's something that I'm definitely going to play around with. I didn't really think about applying
That's
that.
what I'm very big on is I'm trying to give you mechanics because those things to me, and I'm glad you asked that question because that's totally makes me tells me you're thinking about it. Because one of the things I used to look at, I mean, even when I was a little kid, and you'd see it like in those Frazetta paintings and all that stuff, you go, where is all this color coming from? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like, it looks so badass, but I don't know where's that. And it just seemed like magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to do it and you go, well, I want to put a big streak of blue in there. And it looks like shit because you didn't build the painting and that was based on a real idea and a concept and the lighting and bounce light or whatever it was. He didn't just throw it in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Let me make a note to myself on that. And that's basically color modulation. You can have value modulation also, right? And a good example of this, by the way, you guys, I wish we were in the classroom because I could really show you. Hang on. Like we usually, when we're in the classroom, you know, there's a big expansive wall in 1028. God, I've been off campus so long, I don't even remember what numbers are. In 1028, and when you look at the wall, it's really nice in the daytime too. So you look at the wall and you go, okay, you can do the mistake that I made that I just described of trying to paint the whole wall the right color, correct? Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it became boring and it was flat and it wasn't anything, right? Or you could actually look at that wall like in the room in there, and over here it's going just a little bit cool, and then it shifts over here to a little bit warmer, just a touch of yellow ochre in there, and then as it drifts off over here, maybe just a little touch of burnt sienna gets in there. It's almost imperceptible. But when you flood that wall wet into wet with those colors, it's going to look so much more real, so much more interesting, and just so much more believable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Even if you're not doing a believable environment, it doesn't matter. Makes it more interesting. Makes it look more professional. Does that make sense? That's really the word I'm looking for. It makes it look more pro.
Okay. I'll definitely play around with that. Thank you.
Really, at the end of the day, we're all trying to look more pro, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what gets you hired. Get rid of this. Okay, so let me jump around here. Okay, here's another one. Who is this?
It's mine.
Okay, you didn't sign it.
Oh. Wait, sign it?
Yeah, it just says, this is what it says. Right here, IMG underscore 1172.
Oh, I think I deleted it at first and then
Okay,
re-uploaded
point being
one
though,
with
it's
the
not
name.
signed, right?
Oh,
Make sure your name's on it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't know who it is. Okay, so look. This is getting into that same issue where it feels very incoherent, the color. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also, why is this wall like a lime greeny and then it goes to this color? And like here, it's this color, then it goes to this color. And here it's blue and then it goes to purple and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Why are those walls shifting colors like that?
Well, I'm not really sure.
Okay, so if there's light there, the more than light, I mean, you could have an accent wall or something, I get it. But basically you're going to light those walls like, you know, like they're the inside of a box, right? So this one might, whatever where the light is, one might be a darker value of the color. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that goes back to like, if this wall is this lime green, then this one, I can just neutralize that lime green a little bit over here. You know, let's say, oh, actually this one would probably be a little darker, but whatever. The one that goes darker, I can throw a little complementary in there and maybe a little red in there, knock it down. It'll go a little darker because it's not going to go that much darker in the daytime like that, right? And then they both live together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then these colors, again, they're feeling pretty out of the tube, right?
Well, yeah, sort of.
Yeah. We got to start managing our color. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one here, this one, at least it's got a little bit of light and then it goes into shadow, which is good. And you know what, you guys, like just basic flesh tones, you can start with like a burnt sienna, or depending on if it's darker or lighter flesh tone. If it's a little darker, I might start with a burnt sienna, push and let that dominate it a little bit, and then push a little yellow ochre into it and a little touch of red. If it's a lighter value skin tone, like more of just a, like, you know, my skin tone or whatever, I might start with a little yellow ochre, then a little bit of burnt sienna, but I'm going to lean less on the burnt sienna, and then a little touch of red. And then when it goes in the nose, I'm going to do a demo on this on Monday. Let me make a note of it because I can do it really fast. The problem is right now is my printer's out. Okay. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Do you have any questions?
Well, no, I guess I'll just fix up the colors a bit.
And then make sure you
Next time.
get to a finished drawing. You got to get to a finished drawing, right?
Yeah.
Because like these hands aren't really worked out. You know, just get to a finished drawing. You got to do both those things. Okay. Yeah. Where'd you go? Ellen? Did I just lose her? Where'd she go?
Maybe her connection?
That's weird. Hang on.
Sorry, I'm here. It's that I had to do something first. I got interrupted.
Okay. All right. So I'm jumping around here. I'm just trying to find ones that, okay, this one looks much better than it did before. Where you at? It's another one with no name on it again.
It's mine,
Who is this? Where are you?
Dominique.
Okay, put your name on these things.
Yeah. I totally forgot.
Okay.
I thought I put it in the file name, but I guess not.
Okay, these look 100% better, correct?
Yes, I think so.
Good. So which one do you think?
Probably 3.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know what I always want people to do with the blackboard? Is that a blackboard?
Yeah.
I always want them to get that perfect blackboard green. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking about making it that color. We'll see if I can.
Just look at the green and go, is it a little cooler? And that's your starting point. Is it a little warmer? Right?
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find this. That's not what I wanted. This one isn't the green, but God damn it. No. This isn't the green, but it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like a gray blackboard type.
But it's just like it's perfect. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, look at this room, man. It's all watercolor.
Yeah.
Right? Now that's pretty tight watercolor, but it's bitching, right?
Mhm.
Lilo and Stitch is something I think it's really good to look at.
Yeah, is that for a new project?
I have no idea.
Because I don't know, it just doesn't like nothing from the actual movie kind of look like that.
No, it doesn't. But all this stuff is cataloged in my head.
Like the backgrounds for Lilo and Stitch.
Oh,
Well, I mean, like, I know things like change in production and stuff. They could have had like a classroom scene that they cut from the film, but like, it just, like, look at that. Like,
no.
I feel
That's
like
not that. To me, that doesn't look like it's from the film.
that one, the animation
The one I
background
showed you.
on the page. Yeah, the one that you just showed us didn't look like it had
This
anything to
looks
do
like
with
it's
it.
from the film.
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's from a book.
It could be from a million things. It could be from a product. It could be from a book. It could be from a storybook that came with a product. It could, it could just be a million things. I mean, they're the kings of synergizing everything they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a background painting from Lilo and Stitch, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Nice and loose. Look right here. Look how they're modulating the shapes in these rocks.
Yeah, I can kind of see the blue in there after
Yeah,
having
there's a
our
little
talk
bit of
about
like,
it.
look, there's a little bit of green right there. Why? Because I can justify it. There's a lot of green in this environment, right?
Mhm.
But there's also like some real hot green here. And if you notice right there, it's getting picked up down here. And then there's some warmth right there. And
Yeah,
that's
we can kind of see the
modulating
warmth.
color. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that warmth can be justified from the rooftop and the rock next to it.
Yeah,
right?
and also look out here. It's justified out here. This is a warm lit environment with sunlight.
Okay. Oh, and like how the sunlight's bouncing onto the
Yeah,
how
and
it's
I don't
bouncing
know
on
where,
the
I don't
fences.
know what's
Okay.
behind. I don't know what's behind where I'm sitting in this image. So behind me, there could be some, more sunlight bouncing around in this little alleyway, and I can take any of that stuff and play around with it. You know what I mean? Because light bounces all over the place. Okay. Just like right
So
here. Look under this eave right here. This is important. See how that's warm?
yeah.
If people don't know any better, they'll go, oh, that's in shadow. I'm going to make it cool. No, this ground is super hot and lit. It's going to go bing and bounce right up into those rafters. If you're walking down the street on a sunny day, notice that. And if you warm up those rafters, man, that alone will elevate your work a little bit, those little things. And then it'll start to vibrate a little bit and look really nice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but another question looking at this scene and still on topic with it. So what I'm noticing from this painting, and if you probably scroll through some other Lilo and Stitch stuff, I feel like all of the whites, instead of it being a white, is the modulation of the color of the environment. Would you say that that's kind of like a key to making white not kill the painting?
Now, what do you mean it's part of the modulation of the color?
Like if you look at the backboard and the fence and the post on the...
Well, they're not 100% white.
Okay. Well, no, I mean like in life sometimes if you look at like something was like just painted like white, like the fence, I feel like the people who painted this wouldn't paint that actual fence white. They would use
Oh,
just
no.
the bounce. Like, is that
Yes.
kind of a key to
Warm
this?
that up. If that was a white fence, you're not just going to leave it white.
Okay.
Okay. And the other thing is with watercolor, what's kind of nice, if you ever notice most early painters, their paintings look real chalky. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's because they're going, ooh, I got to lighten that up. I'll just take some white and throw it in there. And oh, I got to lighten that up. I'll just take some light and I'll throw it in there. And I'll just put some white in this. And I'll put some white in this. And I'll put some white in this. And the whole thing becomes just a chalky mess. The cool thing about watercolor is that since you're using the white of the paper for the most part, it doesn't really get chalky because there's no white paint in it. You're just using the white of the paper, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I might take some of this ground color, if it was a white background or a white fence or a little of this. And then I'd also think about, you know, it's aged a little bit. And I'd probably just wet into, like, if you look at this, that's probably gouache over the top of it, that little white there. But like this wash right here on this fence where it subtly goes to this, and here it is again, look. There's a little bit of purple in there, see that?
Yeah.
And then it's picking up the warmth of the ground here. You see that?
Yeah.
That's modulation of color, right? That's what makes it look more pro. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And by the way, I think I have a book on Stitchwood. I think is long out of print. And it's about the making of it. And I think they spent like 2 years getting a handle on watercolor, just doing that. You know what I mean? And there was somebody on that crew who came to the director, which I think was Chris Sanders, and goes, hey, and he did, you can find it. He did a gouache version of this. It's actually a pretty well-known painting from this movie where they did a watercolor version. It's a scene. And he painted that scene in gouache because he took it to Chris Sanders or whoever and goes, hey, we can do this in gouache, because they didn't want to do it in watercolor. Because they're like, watercolor is a nightmare to do this kind of production in. And he's like, doesn't look like gouache. I'm not doing that. We're not doing gouache. Forget it. We're doing watercolor. That's it. Right?
Yeah.
And then if you look here, look at. Oops. If you look here, look at how simple this is. It's just a dark shape against a light shape, and then this one little shape. Look at that. And then when you back out of it, it all looks pretty damn put together. Right?
Yeah.
That's design. Okay. Look at the grass right here. Like, to me, that's how you want to think about grass and things like that. Not little individual mass with everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Look at this rock, man. Just a bunch of some of these textures here might even be a natural sponge. That's what it looks like to me. And then just, you know, again, here's the piling on shapes. Warm, cool, warm, purpley. Man, with a rock, as long as I stay sort of in a certain range, I can get away with murder in a rock, right?
Yeah. They're pretty forgiving.
Yeah. They are and they aren't. Because they're like simple, but it takes people a while to get them right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
you.
so I agree with you. Number 3, by the way.
Yeah, if it wasn't 3, it would be 2. Definitely not 1 though.
I think it's 3.
Okay.
And then, you know, you probably might not want to do, because what color is your alligator going to be?
Green.
What is it?
Probably like a really dark green.
So I might not, and you still probably might be able to, but I might not just do the greenish blackboard if that's going to be green too, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, some of those blackboards were, you know, that like the one we just saw where they were sort of that gray charcoal blacky kind of color.
Yeah, correct.
Do not use black for that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to mix black, you guys, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Okay. There's a few other combinations you can use, but that's a real common one. Okay. And you can mix a nice black, and you can either let it live a little cooler or you can let it live a little warmer, because the burnt sienna is warm and the blue is cool. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
I just had one. So like in terms of playing with color, like I don't want to use, I have like a basic like watercolor kit because I don't usually use it, but I bought it for the class. For playing with color, I do have like Crayola watercolor pencils. Can I use those just to like experiment what colors are?
You can experiment with it, sure.
Okay.
And
Not
sometimes I
on
tell
this.
people if they're really broke, it's like here's the problem with cheap watercolor or cheap paint, period. What it basically usually is yeah, it's a lower grade paint, but it's really the pigment to binder ratio. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not very heavily pigmented, which means it's, you know, it gets pretty dullish color. It's hard to get really vibrant color. It's also not a real quality color. But every kind of paint you buy, whether it's oil paint, watercolor, acrylic, gouache, it's all the same pigment. You know that, right?
Mhm.
So it's not a different pigment. If I buy cobalt blue in watercolor, gouache, oil, casein, whatever, it's still the same. It's still, you know, that mineral cobalt, right? The only
Yes.
difference is with watercolor, it's mixed with gum arabic. With acrylic, it's mixed with a polymer-based emulsion or whatever. And then with oil, it's mixed with linseed oil, right?
Mhm.
So they're all the same. So the good thing about that is once you start landing on a palette you like I like my palette, I can just use that palette across the spectrum, except for gouache. Gouache has different naming conventions. It has some that are the same and then some that aren't. Okay.
Mhm.
So then what I look at and I go, okay, in the gouache line, Winsor Newton line, what is a good neutral red? Right? Because they have like a spectrum red. So then I got to go research spectrum red and go, is that coolish or is it warmish? Or is it neutral? Because with the red, I always want to have a neutral, right?
Yeah.
Because CAD red, you look at it and you go, oh, that's a nice red. Well, it's not. It's actually leaning purple.
Mhm.
Okay. So that means when you're mixing something in there and you're wondering why it's a dull, weird color you're mixing, it's because there's blue in there and you weren't accounting for that blue. Right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you're actually mixing with sort of a purple.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So what you want to know is really understand what, and after a while, when you get good at this, you'll go, your palette will probably totally change to something you like, but
Mhm.
it'll be based on some sort of knowledge, right? It's why I
Yes.
can't really buy an over-the-counter kit because it's just not going to be the palette I like. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And now I let myself have brilliant orange on my palette. I didn't used to. Okay, where's Gavin?
I'm here.
Which one? Which one are you leaning towards?
I liked number 3, 4, and 7, I think.
3, 4, and then 7. Where's that right there? 3, 4, 7. I think 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that is because this over here, well, not there so much. Hang on. I kind of like this green in here.
Yeah. The other thing with number 3 was the bush was darker than the alligator. I think in the other one, see the alligator is darker than that bush.
Yeah, I think this works a little better here.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and also what's this green made from?
I think I used like a viridian with some yellows.
With some what?
I think some like yellows or a warmer color I mixed it with.
Okay, so just know that Viridian's a very cool green.
Yeah.
So it's also a very strong color,
Mm-hmm.
right? You throw
Yeah.
green in there, Viridian in there, boom, man. If it's not supposed to be in there, boy, is it gonna pop out,
Yeah.
right? Like sap, you can get away a little better or a little more because it's a warmer, a little more natural looking green. Now, Viridian, I keep that on my palette. I like Viridian. But I always use it with something else pretty much, and I use it for all these different things, or if I need to cool something off or whatever. But I got to really pull back the reins on it because it is really strong.
Yeah.
It's like a phthalo blue or something. Phthalo blue is crazy strong. Phthalo green is crazy strong, right?
Yeah. Even when I try to pick it up too with like the rag, it likes to stick
Uh-huh.
strong.
This manhole should have something in it on it.
Yeah, it will on the final one.
So, and then what one did we just say? 3, 4, and 7. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and you said number 5. You like the book.
I like this something, and then now you're getting back to now the alligator is Viridian.
Yeah, I need to mix a green like how
Yeah.
you were saying at the beginning.
Exactly. And then why is the dog green?
I
I can
kinda
answer that.
confused.
You want me to answer that?
I could answer it kind of too.
Okay, what is it?
Partially, I was using the same palette, and also I was saying I'm like partially colorblind too.
Are you?
Yeah, with certain.
Okay, the guy. Okay, so the guy that me and Andrew were just talking about, Peter Zev,
Yeah.
he's partially colorblind. Now,
Yeah,
how that is, I have no idea how that.
yeah,
is.
it's kind of annoying.
But because when I heard that, I was like, "You son of a bitch! You're doing work this good, and you're colorblind?
Yeah.
What the hell?" But I think that might be why his palette is so muted, and I like a muted palette, so maybe I'm just attracted to that.
Hmm.
But I'm not. I don't know. I don't know where in the spectrum he's colorblind.
Yeah. And for that too, I was just trying to mess with like making the dog dark and see how that would have worked.
Yeah, that's fine. But again, a lot of these poodles, well, they're black or they're white or
Yeah.
whatever. They tend to be black or white, right?
I think so.
So then you're gonna have to, if it's white like this, you're gonna have to find some nice light violety, lavendery, shadowy things to start modeling the form, right?
Yeah. I was gonna ask a question about that too. Is there ways to make the color lighter without just adding water?
Not
And,
really.
like, no.
I mean, why would you want to do it any other way? It's how it works.
Yeah. I just feel like sometimes I add too much water.
Well, sometimes you do. That's what you got to learn to manage.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to have a piece of scrap paper over here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Testing.
you just try it, right? That's what I do. I test almost everything before I throw it down. Test the color, how much water I have in it, all that stuff. If I'm doing dry brush, I make sure I drag it off, and then I drag it on another piece of paper, and then I drag it onto my paper, right?
Yeah.
I don't leave nothing to chance. Okay, so do we know what we're doing?
I think so. Yep.
Like this color of the alligator is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah. That one was more bright too.
Yeah, and it's a little more like warmish,
Mm-hmm.
Viridian is just a weird color.
Yeah.
Really effective within a palette, but so I'm just jumping through here, you guys. I'm trying to find ones that I can speak to. Where's Amelia? I think these look pretty good.
Wait, really?
Huh?
I don't even know anything about color or watercolors. I went through like 8 pages. It was bad.
That's what you do. That's what you do. I like
Yes.
this one. And see how this bus has got a warmer, that looks like a school bus yellow. Not there. This is too lemony. This you're losing color right there. Now, the second thing I do is I go back here. Let's see if I can do it like this. Damn it. I'm just going to half-ass this. Back here, I'd make this stuff lighter.
I didn't know that you do it by adding more water. So
That's
now
your value regulator. It's just more water.
I know.
But see how that pops forward now if I knock those back?
Yeah.
Just nice and light and loose. It's not bad. You should be pretty stoked you landed on that. That's good. Yeah?
I guess, yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
No. Is like the road thing okay? Because I wanted to do like
I
purple.
like the road.
purple.
I love this like warmish, like it looks wet into wet, this wet into wet wash like that. That's cool.
Okay, cool.
That's what I love about watercolors, that it does stuff like that. And this. See what you're doing? like right here in the grass, and you're doing it kind of all over. You're modulating the value. Like we were just talking about modulating the color, right? You're modulating the value. And look it looks better than just like a flat wash, right? It starts to have a little bit of form. It starts to feel like have a little bit of texture, right? This down here can probably go a little darker.
Okay. Should I use like the cooler blue purple thing that I was doing?
Or I probably would, just because the bus is all warm.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, again, you know, you could have a lot of warm light bouncing up into it, but you can design this also, because I can believe that it's cooler too. It's fine, right? And I do want to get a contrast in temperature between this warm and here. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so get this all worked out, the drawing and all that stuff, right?
Okay. Could I make them like bigger, like half a page for them? Because a lot of the stuff I couldn't get to, like kids and stuff, because it was just so tiny.
Well, when you do the bigger one, that'll solve that.
Okay. So for color comps, just leave it tiny.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
The only thing I do in the color comp is I'd probably mix just a general flesh tone and go bang, hit the whole face, and then go, this kid's gonna have dark hair, this kid's gonna have red hair, this kid's gonna have black hair. That's it. No black on your palette. Nobody. No Payne's gray, no black, no.
I was muted. I'm an idiot. Sorry, I was talking.
Oh, were you? I do that kind of crap all the time, but I'm old, so I have an excuse.
So I'm going to put the alligator in space, so I have an excuse to have black on my palette, okay?
You still wouldn't have an excuse to have black on your palette.
Thank you.
Did I tell you guys about that woman who told me how into color she was? I told you that, right? Did I, Candace?
Can you refresh our memory?
I was at some dinner party, and I don't like hobby artists when they're trying to pretend like they're professional artists. Just gets on my nerves. So I go to this party, and there's this woman there, and she's an artist. So then somebody goes, "Oh, you should meet Mike. He used to work for Disney and all this crap." So immediately she didn't like me, because she had everybody bullshitted and thinking she's an artist or something. And she was really snotty to me, and like really snotty to me. And she's like pontificating about color, how she's so into color. Oh, you know, my paintings are all about color. And she was an awful hobby painter. Okay. And then somebody goes, "Hey," I don't even remember her name was. They go, and it's gonna make me sound like an asshole, but it wasn't. She was actually treating me really crappy. And then somebody goes, "Yeah, one of her paintings is in the other room, you know, that she gave her friend or whatever." And it was, you know, on the 4th of July, they do fireworks over the lake here. So it was a painting of that. It was, number one, it was absolutely hideous. Okay? But the whole sky she had painted with black out of the tube.
Oh God.
Okay. And it was so hideous. And then I go, and I never do this. It's just that she was being such an asshole to me. And I go, "You're into color?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Why is the sky painted black out of the tube?" And she goes, "Well, for depth." And I go, "That doesn't have any depth because it has no color. It's actually going to be flat." And then she tried telling me it wasn't painted black. And I go, "That's black, man." I go, "Trust me. I've been doing this a long time and I actually get paid for it. Trust me. That's black." You know, and then she hated me more, but she hated me anyway.
Yeah.
It was weird. Okay, where's Cynthia?
Hello.
Okay, I like this big mass shape. So we're going to get a little bit of color modulation in here and a little bit of texture and things like that, right?
Yeah,
And where's my color comp?
I don't have it.
Why?
I just didn't do it. I was working on those first.
All right, get your stuff done, yes?
Yeah.
You got to be consistent, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From a work perspective, I mean, I don't have any problem with this at all. Just get it all done, right? Make sure that maybe he's got
Right,
something
yeah.
that pops a little more in here.
Okay.
Like he's very close in value here. So maybe, I don't know, the stripe is like a light value or something like that. Or maybe the shirt's overall is a little lighter value, maybe.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not getting lost in it. You know, you might look at it and go, eh. I'm not saying it has to go to a white or anything, but you know, just make sure. And I don't think he's not popping out. So it's just try it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And you might go, I like this better, and that's fine. But now I gotta know. Hang on. Just want to see what it looks like if it's lighter.
Yeah, that already looks better.
I don't know. Maybe his shirt is just a lighter value. Again, it doesn't have to go all the way to white or anything. Yeah, see, he'll
Mhm.
pop out of there a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you got, what's really nice is that you're engulfing him in a big dark value or
Mhm.
mid value, right? And then you got, and this is really clever, and I don't know how much you thought about this or if it was just natural or whatever. You engulfed him in a big mid value color or value, right?
Yeah.
And then you reversed it here, and now I have this light value, and they're all darker popping out of that light value. Was that totally thought through, or did it just happen?
It just happened.
I see. You should have said, no, I planned all that.
No, it just happened.
That's good, though. I mean, it's because that stuff's in your head. You don't have to always think about it, obviously, right?
Hmm.
All right. Give me my color comp
Okay. Okay.
in watercolors.
Oh.
Various watercolors.
Like, why are you doing this to us?
Wow, look at this. Look at that. Have you done watercolor before?
Not too well. I kind of played around with it last year a little bit, but not too much. I took some black straight out of the tube. Sorry, a couple of places.
That's fine. You can just recreate. That's fine because these are the comps.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll just mix a black. That's all. Okay, which one are you leaning towards?
On the top, very top, bottom right. I think I like that one the best.
This one here?
Yeah, I wanted to try to get it like I did digital and just to try to find the colors I wanted and yeah, I think.
But these are watercolor, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I see what you're
So
saying.
the middle thing is digital, but that's where I want to take the watercolor, but I know it won't be exactly.
Okay, so
the
this
same.
one, okay, here's what I'm not digging about this one. The values are all very similar except for maybe the hat.
Mhm.
I kind of like the way this is broken up color-wise.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mhm.
It's just got a liveliness to it. He's clearly separated from the alligator, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And then here on the belly, yeah, I think it's this one. And here on the belly, you might want to. So again, these are sort of. Hang on. I'd probably get something other on here on the belly.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to go lighter. And I don't even know if this is the right color, but something that breaks that up a little bit. See what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Not with that green. Let's just get this, whatever, and break up that belly a little bit. Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Other than that, go.
Okay.
Time to transfer. You're definitely ready to transfer your drawing and all that. Yeah?
I'll do that. Yeah.
And how are you going to transfer
it? Reverse it.
Oh, are you? Right on.
Yeah.
And burnish it?
Mm-hmm. And then
make sure you guys use your cheap pencils for burnishing, okay? Are you going to do it based on the way I showed you in the video?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Put 2 sheets of trace over it. That way, if you tear one, you're not going to tear into your drawing. And then use a cheap, like yellow pencil, and usually a dull one's fine. because you don't want to tear into the paper, and all you're doing is burnishing,
Yeah.
and then make sure you tape the original drawing down so
Right.
it doesn't move, so you can kind of lift it, just like a hinge, just keep it on top, and just so you can lift it up and go, okay, see how much is burnished down, and usually it's going to burnish down fairly light, and then I'll go back in and reinforce the line work a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
Mike, I forgot. Do we burnish it before we stretch it?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to have the drawing on your paper before you stretch it. And then I'll usually pull a little bit of it out of the, after I stretch it too. I love push pull. I like things to maybe disappear a little bit and then I pull them back out a little bit. And it's all part of that, keeping it like organic, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And keeping it real, even though I don't really know what that means.
You do that all the time, Mike.
What?
Keeping it real.
I do keep it real. You know what I'm doing right now?
What?
Keeping it real. I can't help it. Okay, I got another one here. This one, no name on it.
You were calling people out, and I immediately realized I forgot to put my name in the title.
I don't know how you guys do that. Okay.
Usually I do. I blanked this time around, apparently.
This guy is just way too light.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And then I don't know if I do a brown floor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If it was me and I had this room like this, and I don't know if you're going to want to do this because I don't know if you've ever done this, but oops, what did I just do? What did I just do? Oh, I know what I did. Hang on. I might like go, if this was a floor or a, light, whatever you call it, not a rug, but a floor. I might pull some of this up here reflecting into the floor to make it more interesting.
Oh, okay.
And then I might go take a darker value, probably a neutral value, and then put a, oops, hang on. Put my tiles right over it and it'll look like a reflective floor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As soon as you have something reflecting into something, then you put something over it. It could be a surface break in the water. It could be tiles. It'll start to look reflective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what to do here, right?
Yes.
Like I want to be painting next week. 100%. Where's Ben at?
I'm right here.
These are getting, a lot of these fill out of the tube to me.
So they're all mixed colors, except they're so oversaturated. I was having trouble like trying to get the paper to take lighter tones, and so I just kept oversaturating it, and I was just.
Well, this right here is just out of the tube. This blue.
Yeah, that blue is, yeah.
And I would argue this purple probably is. It looks a little knocked back.
No,
Okay,
the purple's mixed.
If you look at what's going on here, it's feeling very piecemeal and incoherent. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So you got to figure out how to lock all this together.
Yeah, I was really kind of struggling with that because I've got all the little trinkets on the wall that are going to get like colored in as well. And so I was like, man, this is just going to become a horrible 70s couch worth of color.
Well, one thing you can do to organize that, let's see if I can find this. It's a different thing. I might have said this before, but it's just the one that always pops in my head. Hang on. Yeah, I know I've showed this to you guys before. You can kind of take this kind of an approach where he just washed, probably wet into wet, these colors back here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just basically an overall wash. It's not really, other than this alligator has a little bit of green on him, you know, it's very loose and stuff. And it's really just the line work holding it together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it serves two things. It
That
gives a
looks really
very
good.
unifying mass behind it. But the other thing it does is because it's so light in value and so just sort of just a bunch of motion back there, then the two characters go boop and they pop totally forward, right?
That's exactly what I was trying to do. Yep.
That's what I would handle it like that. That way you get around your problem of like all that stuff on the wall. It can just become a lot of background stuff like that.
Just general color modulation in the background.
Yeah, I would just find like a nice
Okay.
wash that I can do just like this, where I just go. And what's cool about this is it's mostly this warmish wash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here and there, he just kind of went, okay, I'll throw that little bit of blue in there. It's very loose. And what's all that's really holding it together is the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the drawing, if you notice, is in like a nice, probably a sepia pencil. It's not you don't want to do this with like graphite. You can, but it's kind of nice to do it with like a little sepia pencil or whatever, right?
Yeah, I was gonna when I transfer, I'm gonna do a light table, and I was gonna use a sepia pencil.
Yeah. I like using a sepia anyway. That's just me because it just marries to the color a little nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And gray, you know, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, look, I'm trying to introduce you guys to a lot of concepts, and then you're going to take them and do whatever you're going to do with them. And down the line, you might go, I like using graphite and I use this technique and blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never want to come across like I'm saying this is there's so many ways to do this. Okay.
Now, would you think it would work to have like the sepia pencil be like the background line art and then use something darker like the graphite for the alligator and the teacher who are more in the foreground?
Well, if you look at the whole video I did of this process, okay, I did a couple of things. At the end, what I'll do is if I use a sepia pencil, and I might even use a little black here and there, maybe if I really got to punch something, but I almost never do. When I get to the, you know, start moving towards the end of the illustration, then I look at places that I need to separate.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe in the foreground, I know he does it on his stuff too, because it's an old technique.
Yeah, well, like his characters in the foreground have like a darker line value.
Yeah, so this line here, that's ink.
Okay, so he's going in afterwards and inking.
Yeah, but what you got to be careful of,
Okay.
he does it really well too, and I'm really conscious of this. Like there's a black ink mark right there. Why?
Because it's in a shadow.
Separate that ear from the back of the head, right? So what you're doing, like here, look, that's ink. Okay, but you're not, and then on the top of this, there might be a little, but you got to you can't start outlining everything with ink.
You got to be cautious with it.
I
Okay.
need just a little right there. I need a little right there. I need a little right there. I need to separate that arm, you know, that kind of stuff, right? And if you keep that business to just your foreground characters, they'll pop forward.
Okay.
So to your point, yeah, use your sepia pencil on the whole thing. And then what I use for this is I just use brown Higgins ink.
Okay.
And then what I do is I mix two values. I use a regular full strength brown ink. And then I add a little bit of water to another one to knock it down. So it's still much stronger than my pencil, but it's not 100% my
Gotcha.
full,
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yep,
And the reason I do that is because I always want to have somewhere to go. I always want to be able to go darker or whatever. I'm always leaving a little leeway in there. Okay. Like I'd argue this line up on the top of the elephant's nose is probably been diluted a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you're really managing it all, which is, I just love doing that. You know what I mean? I love building this stuff. And like, I just love, once I'm into it and I get the whole thing sort of blocked in, it's so much fun to me. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, at a point,
what I would start with is I do a big wash over all this stuff around back here. See what, and then just like he did in that one, I might be a little more specific. And I probably do it all wet into wet.
Yeah.
Now, wet to wet's not going to react the same way on copy paper like it does on real paper. On real paper, it's bitching, right? And then I just make this just a little more grayish, charcoaly, just a little bit, but I'm not going to really define anything back there. Just let the line do it. Right.
Okay.
And then, yeah, you could give this kid a little pop of red there, but it's not going to be a big pop. It's going to be a real little muted pops back there, like he did with this alligator, with the rhino or the hippo here.
Okay.
This little yellow, just that kind of thing. And if you notice, he didn't do anything to this. It looks like he probably did a yellow ochre wash over the whole thing and then went back over it.
Yeah.
So what did he do with the yellow ochre wash? He unified everything, right? And that's what you're trying to do right now. You're trying to unify these things, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think I've got a small watercolor sketchbook. I think I might try to start prepping some of these in that, because like that, the copy paper was not playing nice with my watercolors.
No, it doesn't. It just sucks it right in.
Yeah.
But for me, when I'm just doing this, I just want to get my ideas going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, a lot of printers will take 90-pound watercolor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that heavy.
Yeah,
I used to put it through old printers like 15 years ago, maybe more, 20 years ago, or whatever it was, right? And if those printers back then could do it, the ones now can probably do it. No, like an Epson for sure probably do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, mine can definitely do it.
Yeah, so just get and by the way, if you're going to do that, get a cheap pad or whatever. Like you can buy cheap pads of 90-pound watercolor paper. I used to have one. I used it for demos for like $7. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And try and get it so it'll just like a letter size if you can, so you can just fit it in your printer without a hassle.
What kind of quesadillas are these?
Kind of what? What kind of quesadillas are these? Listen,
I think she doesn't realize she has her mic on.
She doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, Amelia's eating quesadillas and not sharing with the class.
True. Oh, I was unmuted. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Did you bring enough quesadillas for everybody?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like sour cream of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get them for you, Andrew.
I do too.
I'm so sorry.
I'll take one.
And I'm real picky about the cheese on there, so it better be good.
It's pretty good.
I like that you were asking what kind they are as you're eating them. Okay.
And now she's muted herself.
Wait, I haven't seen the other one, and it looks like there's stuff in it. So yeah, this one's just cheese.
Are you what's called a fussy eater?
I'm not. I eat everything.
I'm a human garbage disposal. I'll literally eat anything. Okay, this one is just got to get worked out. Does that make sense?
Yep, I get it.
We need a so I'm gonna roll off of these now because I think I've said everything. I'm just gonna start repeating myself. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start repeating myself. It's gonna be value. It's gonna be, I think I've gone through the ones where I can actually offer some solution like Benton's or something like that. Most of it's gonna be just like I said. What's the main takeaway here? Don't use watercolor. Don't just use color out of the tube. And have a coherent idea. Go look at some reference, okay? You need to look at reference. If you guys are not looking at reference, you're crazy, okay? I know
it's hard to find alligators in space, okay?
Not really. What was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Andrew totally derailed me. It was super profound too.
So sorry.
Reference. That's what you were talking about.
Natalie.
So on mine, I only used on my different thumbnails. I only used 6 colors at most, and some of them I only used 3, like 1 of each primary. Is that like too few, or is that okay to only use 3?
Look, here's the thing. How much have you painted?
I've been painting for a few years with watercolor.
Okay, so if you really understand color, have you ever heard of a Zorn palette?
No.
Okay, a Zorn palette is what Anders Zorn used. It's only 4 colors. It's like, I don't know, I think it's yellow ochre, it's ivory black, cad red, and I forgot the other one. Right?
There's blue, right?
No, you use ivory black as blue.
Oh, really? Huh.
Well, if you okay, and I always say this, if you take in, you know, a paint and you like go, Mars Black is like this too. If you mix like white into like Mars Black, it's blue.
Mm.
Okay, and I think Ivory Black's the same way.
So if you
so-
watered down Ivory Black, it would be.
I don't know if it works that
You
way with watercolor.
Oh, okay.
It'd be interesting to try it. I don't think it does. I think it actually stays a little more neutral.
Yeah.
And
'cause-
again, like if you take CAD red, you go, oh, it looks like red. Then you add white to it. All of a sudden, you start going, whoa, it's kind of purple. And it's a
Yeah.
really good thing to do with your colors to really know what they are. Because I remember when I was starting off with this stuff, I remember I was painting something one time, and I'm like, why is this so freaking blue? I can't get the blue out of this. You know what I mean? And it was because some color in there, maybe two of them in there, had blue in it. And then I was mixing some color and adding a little white to lighten it up, and that white just screamed up all that blue. Color's a tripped out thing, you know what I mean? And a lot of people like to use a very limited palette. Like I was listening to Nicholas Uribe, who's a really amazing painter. I think he uses like 5 colors. You know what I mean? And and I do like a fairly small palette. My palette is basically, I think it's maybe 9 colors, right? Now I'll extend it out now. Now I extend it out a little bit, and I'll put brilliant orange and dioxazine purple in there, which I didn't used to do. But I just go, it makes it easier to do certain things. So I'm not going to torture myself, right?
Yeah.
But if you have too many, like I found my old acrylic bag from college years ago. I was cleaning something out or whatever. Like, holy crap, here's my acrylic bag from college. It must have had like 50 colors in there.
Yeah.
Go back and look at my paintings. They were a mess because they just had all these alien colors in it that made no sense.
Yeah.
So the
I
smallest,
get overwhelmed when there are that many colors.
the
for
smallest,
paint.
you know what I was doing? I was making the stupid mistake because I didn't know anything about color really. I was making the stupid mistake of going, I got to have every shade of every single color
Yeah,
if I need it, which is
exactly.
completely stupid. But if you have a smaller palette, your colors are going to harmonize much easier. Okay. And then what's going to happen is once you've got a sort of a mix going on it's like if you're oil painting, I used to love to oil paint all night, and I'd be oil painting. And then I don't know, as soon as I got in that zone, I start throwing everything down, would just look bitching. Right. And I was like, man, it's amazing. You know, it's whatever. And it was because I'm now just pulling from these color mixes that I've mixed. And as soon as I nudge one a little bit, they're all married in the same family. So they're all harmony. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
But then if I go and I go, hey, I'm going to go grab this weird alien quinacridone red and stick it in here, all of a sudden the whole thing's out of whack. You know what I mean? Because it's like that doesn't belong in there. Now sometimes go ahead.
That's why I was trying to use like very limited colors just so that it wouldn't harmonize. But I don't know, like I was still having a hard. I know how to mix colors, but I don't know how to choose colors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Like I can, like, if you said, oh, mix this color, I could probably mix it and be pretty spot on, but I can't like create a color palette.
Well, I want to see more of that subtlety than in these mixes, right? Like this, see how this blue is just popping out and this red is just popping out?
Yeah.
And like I can find them in everything. It's like this red is just too much. This is out of the tube. Why are her shoes like super red like that?
I think I did add something else to it, but.
And by the way, I don't care if you're just trying a bunch of stuff. That's fine too. To be honest with you, 90% of what I do, I just go for it. I mean, but at the same time, I've got all this experience in my head and all this training in my head and all these years of doing it. So a lot of what I'm doing is just based on experience. And that can also be a bad thing too, because you can go, boy, you do that all the time. You know what I mean? Boy, you always go to that solution, you know, for me, right? So I'm always trying to break my habits because I'll just go, you always go to that color palette, you know, because you're comfortable with it. That's not a good thing for me. That's on the other side of the experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to go, no, push yourself into something else here. This doesn't make sense with this. That's your comfort zone. And I'm always trying to kick myself out of my comfort zone. You know what I mean? So which one are you leaning towards here?
I I kind of like, there aren't any that I like the whole thing of, but there are like parts of some that I'm like, okay, like the top left one, I like the right half of it more so. And then I like
do that.
the left half of the top right one.
But then you got to be careful. Is this a blackboard? What's back here?
Yeah, it's a blackboard.
That's not the color green of a blackboard.
Yeah, I was figuring
That's
that
a
out.
very specific green. That's what's so cool about
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? And I think it's cool. I think it's like a cooler green, I think. And
I was
it's
just trying to find a green that would work well also with the color of the alligator because I didn't want it to like be too close.
well,
So
the
I
thing with-
kind
the
of
thing with
changed
the-
it from
the thing with a if you're going to do that kind of green blackboard, you have to hit that green. You have to.
so then I would like base the color of the alligator off the blackboard more
Yeah,
so.
you probably don't need to. I don't know if you need to. I mean, if it's clashing dramatically with it, sure, but I don't really think it will.
I mean, like if I just didn't want it to be like the same color, you know, or, like really similar. That's what I mean.
Well, the color of the alligator is not going to be similar to the color of the blackboard. It's just not.
Okay.
'Cause that would just be weird. That's a weird, very specific color. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
The color of
Yeah.
those blackboards is really specific. It's why I like it so much. It's also very evocative of an old classroom. Do they still have those in classrooms?
No, they're all whiteboards now.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I grew up with black.
I mean, I
Gotten
get it.
worse,
Whiteboard
Mike.
green.
They have smart boards now.
Yeah, I was waiting for that to happen.
I
Yeah,
grew
there
up
was
with
this
blackboards and
Yeah.
chalk.
there was an experimental whiteboard that I saw at my brother's school, and it had like touchscreens on it and stuff, and I was like, what?
I have not been in a single class that had a smart board that actually worked.
That figures.
Well, the teacher in my brother's class walks up and she can use her fingertip to draw on the board. It's pretty interesting.
Hey, Natalie.
Hmm?
And separate the top of this shoe from the bottom.
Oh yeah. These
And
were
I know
like
this is a
tiny,
comp.
so
I get it. I get it.
yeah, I didn't do much.
I'm just
shading.
saying that I don't care on a comp. I'm just pointing it out. I know I don't expect you to do all that stuff in a comp, otherwise you'll spend too much time on them.
Yeah.
I agree with you on this.
Mhm.
I like this color here. That's a color I was thinking of for the desk.
Oh, for the desk. Yeah, that was like I really focused on the desk color. Like I did like very like subtle variations. Of
So I
different
would use like
shades of ochre.
this.
Okay.
And then what I like about this, exactly what I was thinking, where say how these hits are getting just a little purpley to them.
Mhm.
Like, that works really nice on wood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really almost like muted. And it's going to, and by the way, you guys, color is going to mute because this is stained glass, right? So I might not mute my purple as much as I normally would. I just dilute it. And then I'm going to lay it over this yellowish wash. Those are complements. And it's going to knock that purple
Yeah.
down anyway, right?
Mhm.
So I might not want to knock it down too much because it's going to be sitting on top of yellow already, right?
Mhm.
And that might be enough to just knock it down anyway. So I just like throw
Yeah.
it down and go, is it fine like that? And a lot of times it is, as long as it's not too
Yeah.
heavy or because it can't be too heavy.
Yeah, that's basically what I did.
So I might use this,
Mhm.
and then I think you got to get some colors with and I like this little shift right here to warmed right here.
Mhm.
I just make sure that this kid is really separating from that alligator.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out how to do. And other ones I made his shorts like a really dark color so
And
that
then,
it would
and then
contrast.
this chair, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
This desk, this
Oh, okay.
teacher, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then I think you just got to work out the kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so back to the blackboard thing. It is a very specific color, but the thing that I was thinking was like, since it's a very dark color, I didn't want to try to get the exact color because then it would like, I was thinking it would take away from the
That
focal
makes no
point, which is
sense.
the boy.
It's,
No, okay.
It's too specific an object.
Okay.
You'd be like, oh, I wanted to draw this plane, but I didn't really think it
So-
needed wings. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing. It's just too specific an object. You know what I mean?
So
now you could
does that
also,
mean-
now, if you didn't want to do that, you could go to the charcoal grayish blackboard and use that.
Okay.
Either way,
Yeah.
either way, it's got to have some chalk something on it, chalk writing or something, right?
Oh yeah, I have show and tell written on it. You can't see it.
And that, by the way, you might want to do maybe with a Prisma at the end or something like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I got that exact shade of green and it was like similar in tone to the hair, would I have to just adjust the hair and make the hair lighter instead? Because
Well, the
that's
hair-
what I was concerned about.
The hair's not green.
Yeah, but if I like made it black, like turned to black and white to look at just the tone, if the tones were super similar, wouldn't that
Well,
be a
you'd have to
problem?
make sure that you got to work out the value in that case. That's value.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what I mean.
And you know, you could just do something like you're doing here where the kid's got dark hair. I like this actually, because that's got some color in it. I like that.
Mm.
I even like this. I like this see that little wash right there and how it just shifts to blue a little bit. I mean, there could be a window over here and he's catching a little blue in his hair. You know what I mean?
Like fill light, maybe. Kind of. So okay, the desk
I
from
like this hair.
okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
I'm just trying to remember which ones you said of each, like which elements you said of each one. So
I
the
would
desk.
say
that-
this
that.
desk.
Mhm.
I would say this teacher. So it's 1, 2 right above each other.
Yes.
And then this chair right here.
Okay.
So it's actually these top 3, this chair, this teacher, this desk. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then just work out the, you know, whatever's left,
Okay.
you know, the blackboard and all that. And then if this, what's on the ground here? Do you know?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I didn't know what to do with.
Well, I mean, one thing you could do is you could go, you know, maybe, okay, so one thing I like to do, and it's in the video, I like to, once I stretch the paper or I stretch it, I like to give it just a kiss of yellow, ochre.
That's actually what I, on most of these, I did a yellow, orangey.
So here
wash
you can go,
over it first.
here, you know, I could just, not thick enough, hang on. That's way too fat, but, and I wouldn't put it over everything, obviously.
Mhm.
But, you know, there could just be a tile floor here.
Okay.
And then that just solves my problem with the floor.
Okay.
Right?
So it could stay like quote unquote white. Obviously not like pure
Yeah.
white. Like
Yeah.
Okay. I was struggling
I
with
actually think that
figuring
might
out-
be a good solution, actually.
Yeah, because there's already the circular mat under him and then like
Yeah.
the other mat in the corner. So I didn't want it to
It'll
be
start
like
to feel
another
like
color
you're
and,
trying to cram too much stuff in there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I
And
was.
you know what? I might even try getting rid of that and just see if he can stand on a white floor.
Okay.
And then what
Yeah,
I
I
might
was
do,
kind of.
what I
not
might
like-
do is have him reflect just a little bit into the floor, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
Actually,
you don't have all
yeah,
this
I
stuff
wasn't
that
liking that
you
mat.
And then you'll also get a clean silhouette for these kids in the foreground.
Right, right. Okay, I'm actually
Rid
gonna
of
do
that.
that.
Put a tile floor. What you want to
Yeah.
do is put that little bit of and it's very light, very simple. And you put that little reflection, and then you just and take a brush and scale, do your line working with a brush and scale. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you on Monday. Do you know how to do that?
I don't think so.
You're the one who taught me that. I was just thinking where I learned that from.
That's a cool trick.
I love that trick.
That learning that trick is one of the things that alienated me from a teacher at Fullerton, because he didn't know how to do it, and he wouldn't admit he didn't know how to do it. Hang on, I want to make a
Did
note.
you tease him about it?
No, I just go. There was a couple. I did this a couple times, only with like when I was really frustrated, because I actually really respected my teachers, but I got tired of going to him for these I was really hungry for this stuff, and I showed him a painting or something it was, and I go, "How'd they do that in paint? How'd they get it so straight?" And he goes, "That's a felt tip marker." And I go, "No, it is not a felt tip marker." And he tried to talk me into it, and I go, "Dude, just say you don't know, because you don't know. Just say you don't know." You know, and I kept pushing him to do it, and then I quit his class.
So you didn't tease him outright, but you
I was really fed up with him. He always gave me hippy dippy doodah BS answers. And I found that really frustrating because I really wanted technique.
Now I want to learn this new technique.
I'll show you on Monday. Or actually, wait a minute. It's really simple. Hang on. If I have a brush here.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I can't find any scales though. The scale is the hard part.
Yeah.
I just use a ruler and I lift it off the
You
paper
can do it
and
with
I
a
do the
ruler.
same
You
thing.
don't have to have a scale.
Yeah. It's just the scale looks so much cooler. I feel cool holding
Well,
the
it
scale.
actually works really well. The scale works really well.
Yeah, it has some weight to it. So I feel like it's easier to like, hold in place the way that you have to. It's like an architect tool, right?
Yeah, it's a scale. It's a architecture. What do you call that? When if I'm doing 1 foot to the 1/4 inch to the foot, when you're doing architectural scale drawings like elevation drawings, that's what it's for. So they look like this.
It's like a little 3-sided ruler. It's really cool.
That. And I'm going to balance it like that. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to turn on my camera.
Can I buy that scale off of you, Mike?
You can
Can I
get
steal
them
that
anywhere.
from you? I couldn't find any. Maybe
Yeah,
they're just out of stock.
usually you could even get them. You can
I
usually
was
even
at
get
Art
them.
Supply Warehouse. Sorry.
They have them at Art Supply Warehouse. They have them at Blake.
Yeah, I was there
Usually you can
yesterday.
even get them at Staples.
I'm gonna go to Staples tomorrow.
If they have like a little drafting area, which they usually do. Hang on, let me change this stupid camera. You guys see that? Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, I love this technique.
I'm gonna wet this down. It's gonna get black here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Can you guys see my board okay?
Is that black right out the
Yeah.
tube, Mike?
Yes.
For this, yes.
You're fired.
Okay, so there's black. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'll even, let's do this. That better?
It falls onto the table. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get some paint. Ow. Just hit my head on the camera. Okay, there it is. And get some black paint. Balance this on the one wing, put this here, and then just give myself a nice straight line. Does that make sense?
Yep. You can even kind of tap the brush on the scale to get like nice splatter control too. Love that thing.
There you go. Right? By the way, you could also do this with a sweep. Does everybody know what a sweep is? Or a French curve.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Benton? Where'd Benton go?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm digging that.
And you know what a sweep is? Those long sweeps?
Yeah.
You can do it with that too. And get a nice perfect sweep. Yeah?
Yeah. So like I've got some French curve sweeps. Would you raise it up off the paper for those, or?
I would just like, so if I don't have a scale or whatever,
Yeah.
like I might just take this and I'll just set it on the paper like that.
Okay.
I've also, like, if I'm out and about and I need it, I might use a book. I'll use anything.
Okay. You're just
if
using
a
that
book-
straight
if a
edge.
book's like this high, I can just set it on the edge of the book. And,
Yeah.
you don't have to get a scale, but the scale, the thing I like about it is you have this, and then you basically have this groove for your hand to just stay really steady in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then I was watching a video of Soriyama, and I'd never seen his process before. It's really cool. And he has, and it's driving me crazy because I don't even know what the name of it is. And when I see archaic tools that I don't have, it makes me crazy. he has a thing that's like literally made for that. And it's got like a track on it and this thing that holds the brush. And it's literally got like a little track and you just go and pull it across the track. You find one of those, I'll be your friend forever. Yeah? Candace?
All righty.
Aren't you our friends
I'm
anyway?
surprised you haven't had one of those.
No, he's unfriending us, Candace. He's
I know,
unfriending
I'm
us
kind
until
of
we.
setting us back to 0. And then whoever finds that piece of archaic, art materials, then, and I kind of want to pit all of you against each other too. I'm hoping to create kind of a Lord of the Flies kind of thing here. Does that make sense?
Do you have a picture?
I'll screen grab it. But what I love about his process, man, it is old school, man. It's like airbrush, paint, and he is so meticulous about every part of that process, man. And he used to be a big deal in like the 80s, and he probably still is in Japan. He did all those chrome women. They were like pinups, but the women were made out of chrome, stuff like that. You've seen his stuff, trust me. But he's still around. Okay, you guys. I'm not sharing, right? Yeah, I am. Okay. So that little trick makes sense, right? Guess where I learned that from?
Greg, right?
Norm.
Gary Meyer.
My bad. I said Greg.
Gary Meyer, man. He knew all that stuff. That's where I learned all that stuff. All that. That's not old technique, by the way. That's just technique. Does that make sense? Like, I don't like it when people go, oh, that old school stuff. What's old school about painting? What's old school about knowing how to use your tools? What's old school about understanding contrast and value and paint handling and brushwork? That's not old school. That's painting. That's design. That's illustration. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't like that old school stuff. That's BS. Okay. Now, if I was doing all this and not using the computer and all this stuff, then that would kind of throw me into the old school, old fart thing. All right. But I haven't hit old fartdom yet, Candace.
What?
I'm just rambling now. All right, you guys. Okay, so what are we doing on Monday? We're going to have these all nailed down, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's get them all nailed down. I want to really be painting. By Wednesday, I want everything transferred, the drawings done, and we're painting. And then we're going to be in here talking about your paintings and process. Does that make sense?
Do you want the painting started by Wednesday, or are we starting on Wednesday?
Like Chris, he's ready to start. He's ready to go. Okay. And if I've said that with anybody, then sure. But if I've said like you need to do this, you need to do that, work that out in the comp. Make sure all your drawings are nice and finished. You got plenty of time because today's what? Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday. And then by Monday, that's plenty of time. Get all that stuff done. Drop everybody else's class. Put all your time into my class. And that'll be much better. Get rid of your family. Get rid of your friends. If you're in a relationship, get out of it.
All right, Amelia, I shouldn't see you in perspective, okay?
Find a cave.
Actually, why I overslept for perspective.
And
I noticed. I was laughing.
And by the way, you're going to need a monk's robes.
Monk's robes?
Yeah.
The art of the
We have
palette.
to shave our heads bald like you.
Yeah.
The order of the palette.
I was late to perspective.
Are we talking Trappist monks or Shaolin monks? Because those are different monk
Shaolin.
robes.
Definitely Shaolin. Shaolin. Because you know why? Because Shaolin monks have that cool tiger logo. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I like the cool tiger logo.
Mike,
what?
I will probably send you an email with some color comps over the weekend because I had to go up to the Bay throughout the fall and I left my palette up there, so I had to mail it to me. It'll be here tomorrow morning. No, I don't have money. I'm broke. Fullerton College don't pay me enough.
Wait. For watercolor, you can go and get, and I use one I have one in my car. You can get these just plastic living hinge white plastic ones. They're like $5, $7, and they're fine.
The teeny ones?
No, they're like this big.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Great. I actually really like them. They're just super simple. And then you can just wet them down and wipe off the mixing area and they clean right up. They're great. I use them all the time. And they're just a living hinge. They just have, I don't know if you know what a living hinge is. It's where they're actually still connected, but that's a real thin area and they just, close them. And they're great,
Do they have
a bunch of
decent like
palettes. Huh?
do they have decent like colors in them though?
No,
Like, is
you just put color in them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're saying that yours had paint in it.
Yeah, I forgot it up
house.
there.
Look, you got how many people in here that you could go break into their house and take their paint?
I'm not allowed to do that.
True, Mike. What the hell?
I just gave you permission.
All right, I'm going to Emilio's house.
Okay, that's cool. And get yourself a quesadilla while you're
Yeah,
at.
can you have a quesadilla ready for me, please?
Yeah, I'll make you a quesadilla while you break into my house.
I'll help you out with your perspective comps.
It sounds like a weird version of Santa Claus.
It's like a
I
reverse.
leave quesadillas. Andrew leaves a finished perspective assignment.
I'll trade you. I'll do your 2-point perspective drawing for your paint palette.
All right, so everybody knows what they're doing, correct? We're heading towards finish of this whole thing, and then we're going to start. I want to prove it on Monday, and then we're working. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mike?
guys.
Yes.
Huh?
Wait, Mike.
Who's talking to me? Oh, Leah. What?
Me. Hi. Quick question. Can I render it like digitally and then match watercolor to it, or? Oh, okay.
This is what drives me crazy.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Oops.
Why are you guys so damn dependent on that computer? Right? Now, you explain this to me. You go into a color comp the way you just said it. How in the hell are you going to know how to mix any of those colors?
I actually do know how to mix colors. I just
Then
don't
why
know
do you
what
want to do it
colors
on the
put
computer?
down. I don't know what colors to put down.
No, you can do what I said. You could just throw it down to figure out the color scheme. Right? You there?
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah. I'm
that
still here.
digitally. I don't care about that. But then go do your color comp in watercolor. Right?
Okay.
But yes, you could figure out the overall scheme. Like, hey, I'm going to try this palette and just throw it out. Don't do a bunch of work in it. Just go, I'm going to make the kid's shirt red and make the wall this and make that and make that. Okay, that kind of works, but I need to make this. I need to change that color. I need to do that. And then just go do your watercolor comp. But I wouldn't spend more than 10 minutes on any digital comp I did. Right?
Okay.
And then even with the watercolor comp, I wouldn't spend over 15 minutes on that either. Right? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the matter? Why do you sound so shaky?
It took me more than 15 minutes.
It's what?
It took me more than 15 minutes, so I'm like, well, I did that wrong too.
That's the beauty of it. I'm doing a drawing right now in my sketchbook and I'm just dicking around with it. I'm just doing it because I like doing it. And probably by the time I get done with this drawing, it's an hour and a half long drawing, but I've been dicking around with it for 2 days. You know why? Because I just love doing it. I just love sitting there and going back to it and fiddling with it and trying to balance it a little bit. And then I'm probably going to paint it and I'll just dick around with it just because I love process. I love pushing paint around or pencil around or pin around or whatever and trying to get it to balance and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just going to learn so much about subtlety of color and all that sort of thing. But again, your planning of your color scheme, your palette, you can do that digital. I don't care. But I want you to work out the actual color comp in watercolor. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. I'm going to let you go. I got the attendance thing. I took 2 of them. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for all the help tonight.
Bye, Mike.
All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye. Bye.